Good morning, guys. So it's begun, it started kind of just like we said it would. The F-16s have now been sent to Ukraine. This comes, I think, the same day as major escalations in the Middle East. And also on the ground in the UK, guys, you can't deny there's been an increase in violent crime on the streets. As you know, as we said, this was one of the potential things that could happen in the UK that you would see before these things started to happen. So what's been happening then, guys? We've got F-16 in Ukraine, we've got Middle East tensions and Middle East escalations, we've got Iran's supreme leader ordering an attack on Israel, we've got British and American warships off the coast of Israel, we've got Poland giving anonymity to their soldiers at the border who may open fire. We've got Finland setting up a new system and a new set of laws to deal with migrants. And of course, we've got the UK sleepwalking into a farming crisis, into an into a food disaster. So, guys, let's just start then. First of all, just think back through my other videos, guys. Remember what we said about this Andrew Bridgen video. You know, when he came out and he said war's going to be declared. He said, what did he say? He said July, August, maybe a little bit later. I said, well, it makes sense to do this when the kids are off school and everybody's on their summer holidays. So, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, guys. I'm saying this is what other people have said, and I'm looking at the information and I see it being tangible. You know, so all these things are happening. Remember, okay, guys, look back through my top 10 video when I said, you know, things that you'll see in the UK, these soft war tactics. Remember, the art of war is not to fight your enemy at all, it's to get somebody else to fight your enemy. So we've got a situation in the UK at the moment where we've got a mass increase in violent crime. I'm not saying this is related to anything. All I'm saying is, go look at my videos previously. You know, it's all documented. I've said that in the build-up, in the run-up to this, in the run-up to escalations, you'll see an increase in violent crime, you'll see an increase in sabotage, you'll see an increase in attacks on critical infrastructure. And guys, you let me know what you think. If you're living in the UK, has there been an uptick in the last, 48 hours of violent crime? Make those assumptions if you want. I said it months ago. It's happening now, things I'm saying. So it's up to you whether you think it's connected or not, guys, okay? The reality is we're never going to be able to prove it is. We can only look to the future. We can only speculate what's going to happen in the future. And then if it does happen, we can understand why it's happened. And then we have that knowledge for future events. So my friend's been sending me some videos of F-16s flying, well, yeah, they were F-16s, they're indistinguishable. F-16s flying over Ukraine, and I'll put the links in the articles, guys, but apparently the first delivery of F-16s has arrived now in Ukraine. Why is this relevant? Well, one of the main weapon systems that the Russians are using are these glide munitions. And there's just no answer for them. I think the biggest one is 3 ton, although the one that they use more often, I think it's 500 kilos. So you've got essentially a 3 ton bomb with wings, no engine, very simple, control mechanisms, and that just flies and glides into targets. They are virtually unstoppable. So what's the solution? How can you stop them or at least push them back? Well, these things have to be launched from another aircraft. These aircraft obviously need to be in the sky. So what the theory is and what the thoughts are with the F-16s are, if the Ukrainians can start flying the F-16s, they will push the range back of those aircraft that are, the parent aircraft, for want of a better word, of the glide bombs. So if they have to go further back, that decreases the range. Also, what you can find with the F-16s, if the Ukrainians can use them in conjunction with ground defensives, is that can secure the airspace, even if it's just for a couple of hours. What that will do is, and again, it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if you can secure the airspace, what that actually does as well is it secures your artillery, because for a big attack you need a lot of artillery, and it's not the, you know, it's not so much the you know, the barrels, the guns, whatever you want to call them. It's the ammunition, because you need a lot of ammunition. So if you have a lot of ammunition in one place, it becomes an easy target to be taken out by air. So you can't do that. So you limit your you know, you limit your resources, and you limit your capacity that way. If the Ukrainians can get air superiority, even if it's only for a couple of hours, that means they can use artillery in conjunction with infantry, you know, and hopefully, well, you know, and push the Russians back or make some meaningful change on the battlefield. Will this happen? Is this going to happen? You know, I don't know, but that's certainly what they'll be trying to do. Now, remember this from the Russian perspective, guys, okay? The Russian, where are these pilots coming from the F-16s? I don't know. I've said lots of my videos, I think there's a high potential that these will be piloted by NATO trained pilots, veterans, F-16 veterans, whether they're Polish or any, there's lots of nations who fly F-16s. I think there's a likelihood that these pilots could be brought into the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and that would be totally legal. They would then be Ukrainian pilots, but they would just not be born in Ukraine, not be trained in Ukraine, not live in Ukraine, only be there for 3 months, and probably be getting paid by an NGO or something. So that's where I think that's going to go. Again, I don't think these F-16s are ever going to be flown from Ukraine. I think they're always, I think this is just a show of force. I think they'll be flown from Poland. So the Russians now know, with all this information, the Russians need to decide on their next move. Do they go full blitzkrieg on the airfields that the Ukrainians could fly these F-16s from in Ukraine? If they do that, what's the next option? Then the next option would be the Ukrainians have to fly them from Poland. They have to fly them from a NATO country. Then the Russians would look at their situation then, and then the Russians may say, okay, we're fighting NATO anyway, they're at full capacity, they can't do anything more, we might as well take the airfields out in NATO. And remember, you know, NATO Article 5, people are, you know, people gush over this Article 5, I've got it down there. In fact, I've actually got it here. No, that's not, that's the rest of it, hang on. I have got it somewhere, guys, it's somewhere down there. But basically, Article 5 doesn't mean that if your country's attacked, the whole of NATO will attack that country. What it means is the Security Council will take such steps as necessary to bring peace and stability in that region. If they only attack them once, and this is just me speculating on my, you know, under my interpretation of Article 5, because I've read the whole document. If the Russians just attack it once, attack one airfield once in Poland, or do a blitzkrieg and take them all out, there is peace and security. You know, there is peace and stability then. So what does Article 5 do? It does nothing. You know, these NATO documents, I don't feel they're worth the paper they're written on. I feel the main thing in this context is the relationship between the Ukrainians and the Polish. You know, they've already had this bilateral security agreement. Anyway, sorry guys, I've got a lot to get through, and I'm waffling on this. So that's what the Russians need to do. So now we need to think, right, the Russians, I think they're going to wait and see how effective these F-16s actually are. If they're effective and they're pushing their glide munitions back, and if they're inflicting casualties on the, on the battlefield, I think the Russians will have a blitzkrieg on those airfields. And then that will give the Ukrainians will have to fly them from Poland. Remember, it's going to be very difficult, and I've said this lots and lots of times, it's going to be very difficult to identify a Polish F-16 leaving on a training mission, leaving on a on a defensive sortie, or is it a Ukrainian F-16 leaving on an offensive mission? So there's lots of different caveats there, guys, but I don't want to keep going into it. Now, the Middle East, guys. The Middle East. I've been away a couple of days and I've missed a few of these events. But basically, Israel's been clearing house. They've been taking out leaders. I think they took out a leader in Beirut. They've took out a leader in Tehran. Yesterday, the president of Iran said, something like, check my video yesterday, guys, something like, we're going to show these cowardly Israelis and whatever. Now the supreme leaders come out, guys, and I'll just read this. Obviously all the links in the description. Iran's leader orders attack on Israel for Haniya killing, officials say. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei ordered retaliation after humiliating security failure as Iran once again balances showing strength against the risk of escalation. So where do they go after this, guys? You know, where is the tit for tat? Because remember, the last time this happened and Iran, you know, and guys, these things always happen on a Friday, so it may happen this Friday. Iran said, you know, we're going to retaliate. They retaliated with a load of loads and loads of drones and Shahed drones and cruise missiles. Lots of these were intercepted, and a lot of these were intercepted by Western forces, by British jets, by American jets, you know, before they actually hit Israel. Now, what's Iran going to do? Are they going to do the same tactic? Are they, you know, because don't forget, they told them when they were going to strike. So what's going to be the next tactic? And then what's going to be the Israeli response? So guys, what you're seeing in real time is this move forward to this, all these conflicts now just flaring up at once. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah has issued an order for Iran to strike Israel directly in retaliation for the killing of Tehran's Hamas leader. According to three Iranian officials briefed on the order. The Supreme Leader gave the order at an emergency meeting of Iran's National Security Council on Wednesday morning, so yesterday, guys. Shortly after Iran announced that shortly after they announced he'd been killed, the three Iranian officials, including two members of the Revolutionary Guard, they asked their names not to be published because they were not authorized to speak publicly. Okay, so maybe there's a grain of salt in that, guys. But there's lots of articles out. I'll put quite a few of them in the description. You know, about the retaliation that's coming. You know, the retaliation that could be coming. And then the counter-retaliations. You know, Israel at the moment is at war on practically all sides. Just off the coast of Israel then, you've got US and British warships. You know, you've got aircraft carriers. You've got a lot of firepower, a lot of assistance for Israel. Whether you agree with that or not, guys, it's there and I'm telling you about it. So we could have a situation now where British jets are called upon, American jets are called upon again to defend Israel. The Iranians know this is going to happen, so are they going to target are they going to think, right, okay, we're just going to target these ships? I don't know, I think that's very unlikely. But let's not forget that what Hezbollah said. Hezbollah have specifically said they're going to target Cyprus. Now, nobody's thinking about targeting Ayia Napa. What they're talking about is the RAF base that's there, RAF Akateria. It's a huge base, it's got a huge runway, it's got the facilities to, you know, to upgrade, repair, fuel, rearm, all these fast jets. So sorties, they don't really have to be flown from the Mediterranean. They can be flown from, you know, from RAF Akateria. Not only that, it's got huge surge capacity. So you can land a an A400, the Airbus 400, the thing that the guys parachute out of. You can land an A400, you can fill it with troops, so you can parachute those troops in. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying it's an option, it's a capacity and it's capability that they have in that region. Excuse me. So, Poland have now given anonymity to their soldiers. First of all, a little bit of background. The Polish border is carnage, guys, at the moment. Poland-Belarus border, it's carnage. You've got migrants trying to get through the border. The Polish are just saying, no, we're not letting anyone through. This border's closed. With that, you know, you had the incident where one of the Polish, I think he was border guard, he got somebody threw a spear at him. Now, when you're thinking of spear, you're thinking of like a wooden thing with a bit of rock at the end. No, this was like a kitchen knife tied to a piece of wood. So one of the Polish service personnel has died on the border. So Poland has authorised, you know, people to shoot. Now, with that, they've also, well, I'll just read it to you now, guys. Poland passes law granting soldiers immunity when using firearms at the Belarusian border. Polish Parliament has passed legislation that removes criminal liability from uniformed personnel who use firearms when defending Poland's eastern border. Human Rights call the amendments a license to kill. Well, you know what, guys? Things are escalating, and if it's a choice between one of your something happening to one of your soldiers, well, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. All right, I don't really want to pass opinion. Both chambers of the Polish Parliament have approved changes to the country's criminal code to exclude, under circumstances, criminal responsibility for soldiers and other officers if they violate normal rules of engagement while using firearms when defending the country's eastern border. Those special circumstances include repelling a direct and unlawful attack. I'm not sure what a lawful attack would be. That threatens the life and health and freedom of the officers or other parties, both if the action of the officers are taken during an attack on the border or during preparations for it, and if the circumstances are judged to require such immediate intervention. Okay. Okay, so they do have rules of engagement there. They still have rules of engagement, but you know what you can see? You can just see these escalations getting further and further and further. And I've said it for the longest time. I'm waiting till these F-16s are deployed in Ukraine because I don't want to give timings. But it seems that all these timings that we were talking about, you know, we've been talking about August, maybe a little bit later, you know, it seems like all this stuff's happening, you know. War by November, all this stuff seems to be, you know, certainly the seeds of it are there, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere soon. Finland, guys. So what's been happening in Finland? So Finland have just set up Finland are setting up a new system to deal with migrants, because that whole eastern wall, so Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, you know, they're all having an influx of migrants being pushed towards their border. Now, to deal with this, Finland are setting up a new system. Well, I'll just read you the first bit, guys, because it's not, and I'll tell you what I think it means, because it's quite vague. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Special infrastructure is being set up at checkpoints on the Finnish border with Russia to accommodate new methods of working with migrants. In particular, containers for interviews with asylum seekers have already been delivered there. So what I think this is going to be is kind of a sterile area. So what I think, and again, this is speculation. Hang on. Yeah, so what I think they're going to do, they're going to have all these steel containers, because there was a similar system in Afghanistan. You know, immigrants will come in, they'll say, hey, you know, we want to come to Finland, we want to be Finnish, we want to, you know, we're doctors, engineers, policemen, you know, dentists, scientists, you know, we're humanity. We want to come and we want to be part of the Finnish culture. We want to assimilate into your culture and be a net asset. The Finnish government will say, okay, fine, come in, we need to process you. So I think these will be containers that they will go into. They will be more like prison cells. This is me speculating, you know, and they will go in there and they will that's just where they'll be. I think it's kind of smoke and mirrors to say we're going to imprison these migrants, because if we've got them in custody, then, and this is me just speculating, guys, this from reading what I've seen, you know, if we've got them in custody here, held in these containers, they're not out there throwing spears at us, as they've seen on the, you know, on the Polish border. And I think that's what they're gonna, I think that's kind of where that's going to. And then, guys, all you need to do, guys, to look at a farming crisis in the UK, go to any search engine and just write farming crisis UK, food shortages UK. So I've just done it here, guys. I'm just going to take the first article. I've not read this. I'll put the link in the description. I'm a British farmer. Here's the scary truth about what's happening to our crops. The climate crisis is making the farming business unsustainable, and without support for us, food security will suffer too. So what they're talking about then is the change in the weather. How wet is it been this year in the United Kingdom? We've not had the ability to plant any crops on any scale. So this autumn, round about October, September time, we're not going to be able to, you know, there's going to be nothing to yield. Luckily, we're still eating last year's food when that gets processed, when it gets made into other things. So, guys, we're heading towards, a food disaster. We're heading towards a farming disaster. And, you know, the reality is all the information's out there, you know, and people are just not wise to it. Because you've still got food on the shelves at the moment, you know, we think there's no disaster, but look how ridiculous these prices are going up. You know, go and try and find it. I went to a supermarket, and I mean, I've said this before. I went to a supermarket to get some stewed steak for my cellar, and I remember last year I paid £1.89 for it, and I was outraged. I was like, oh my, £1.89? I couldn't believe it. But I think that's gone up now to like, I think somebody said it's gone up to like £3.50, but where in my supermarket it was like £3.20. Could not believe it. Why am I only buying food once a year? We just change out our food in our cellar. We've got 3 months food water in our cellar, so every year we change it out. Yes, I know that's not the best way of doing it. You should rotate through it and you should cycle through it, but it just doesn't work for us, so we do it one-on-one. Farming has always been a risky business. To the chaos of Brexit and the relentless squeeze of the supermarkets, we can add the rapidly escalated threat associated with climate change. In most industries, at the point where the risk is judged to outweigh the potential commercial reward, both capital and people tend to make a swift exit, following economist Adam Smith's invisible hand of self-interest. The problem with farming is that most farmers are emotionally invested in their work. An exit is seldom considered. Perhaps we should be more like the bankers, but they wouldn't be much good at growing potatoes. Not only that, guys, if farmers start to pack up and leave, where are we going to get the food from? It's kind of an important thing. Why is farming not taught at schools? You know, why do we teach ridiculous things at schools and we don't teach farming? We don't teach people how to grow their own food. We don't teach people how to process and rear livestock. Guys, absolutely insane times we're living in. News of the day then, guys. I'm just gonna reiterate it again. You know, F-16s have arrived in Ukraine, Middle East tensions, Iran's supreme leaders ordering strikes on Israel. And guys, we're watching this in real time. Remember, guys, if you can, go watch my top 10 video on, if I'll link it at the end of this video, my top 10, I think I called it top 10 soft war civilian targets or whatever, you know. And literally, number 10, I said, you will see an increase in crime. What crime? All crime, because it's easy to do. It's easy, it's cheap, and you know, there's a readily available manpower supply of these criminal gangs that are now, unfortunately, in our country. Guys, that's it. I've got to take my little girl into Sheffield, and I'm gonna back to grid.